Hey there, my name is Paul Spey. I'm a WRAL state government reporter, and I'm here with Will Doran,
Hey
my
there.
colleague on the NC Capitol desk. And today we're here to talk about the filing deadline. Today was the last day people could sign up to run for office in North Carolina at the federal level, the state level. We're going to talk about the state level here because in North Carolina, we've got sort of a divided government. We've got Josh Stein. He's a Democrat. He's the governor. He's not on the ballot in 2026.
But then, who is on the ballot?
Who is on the ballot?
Every single state legislator.
Right. So let's talk about that. And there's 120 seats in the state House of Representatives,
Yeah.
and then 50 seats in the state Senate.
Yeah, that's 170 seats for people who are doing the math out there.
And so, how many candidates do we have?
Hundreds of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we had over 6,000 people file to run for office in 2026. That includes state legislature, Congress, county commissioners, judges. It's great, honestly, seeing just people be civically engaged like that. Thousands of people wanting
Right.
to help their communities out.
Right.
It does give you some faith, in the state of things. And we're going to have some competitive primaries here. We'll
Right.
also have some not competitive primaries.
Right, and to that point, a lot of these districts are baked in one way or another. They're winning Republican districts or winning Democratic districts. Now, there are some that are more competitive, and we saw something today with the Democrats that, we haven't seen in a couple cycles at least.
Yeah.
Where, did they get a person in every House seat?
Yeah, for the state House,
run?
Democrats have candidates in all 120 districts, and that might only be like the second time in at least modern state history that that's ever happened. I
Right.
mean, that's, according to them, it shows that people are fired up this year. They're really plugged in. Obviously, anytime you have a midterm election like 2026 is going to be, it typically goes better for the party that's not in control
Right.
up in D.C. So it's going to be a good year for Democrats. The question is just how good of a year it is.
Right, so in the state Senate, the Republicans have a supermajority. In the state House of Representatives, Republicans have a majority, and they're close to a supermajority,
Yeah.
But they didn't quite get there, although they occasionally get enough votes to still override vetoes from Governor Josh Stein. Like you said, it's hard to recruit in every district because some districts, one party just doesn't always have a chance. But if you get enough people, hey, they sort of serve as a messenger. Say you're a Republican in a Democratic district and you don't think you have much of a chance of winning, well, you can still go around the county and introduce yourself and remind people to vote. That's sort of how it works.
Yeah,
right?
and even if you get blown out in your race, maybe you encourage a few more people who weren't going to vote to come out and vote, and that helps your party in the state Supreme Court race that we have,
Right.
or in the U.S. Senate race, things like that. So, it can be like a domino effect.
Besides the number of people signing up to run, what other surprises did you see today?
Well, there are a number of state lawmakers who are deciding to not seek re-election at all, and all but one of them are Republicans. So again, just kind of goes to show that they're expecting to lose some seats, and some of the people who are not running for re-election are in some of those more competitive seats that you could see the Democrats possibly flip. And if they can flip enough seats, it will really give Governor Josh Stein a lot more oomph to his veto. He's issued a dozen or so vetoes this year, and most of them have actually been overridden, but he's had success with a few of them with actually being able to uphold his veto power.
Right.
And that's because, the Senate is an easy equation for Republicans right now. They all stick together. They are always able to override Stein's vetoes, but the House is a bigger question because they have to get at least one Democrat on board. So in 2026, if Democrats can flip a seat or two in the Senate, if they can keep chipping away at the GOP majority in the House, then Stein is going to be a lot more comfortable vetoing things, and will really enjoy a lot more power going into the next 2 years of his first term here as governor.
And historically, like you mentioned, they expect to have the wind at their back because typically in midterm elections, the party that's in power doesn't do as well, as we've talked about, I believe even here on these shows. So you mentioned there's a U.S. State Supreme Court race. That's the other statewide race that's going to get a lot of attention besides the U.S. Senate races, the state Supreme Court.
Yeah.
How is it controlled now, and who's up for election?
Well, this is important because, unlike in the state legislature, where really the important races are in the primaries. Most seats get decided in the primaries for the state legislature.
Primaries on March 5th. But you can get your ballots before then.
But for the state Supreme Court, there are going to be no primaries for that race. Both the Democrats and the Republicans have just kind of chosen their candidates. Clearly word got out, hey, nobody run against them. We have our picks, and that is going to be Democrat Anita Earls, who's the incumbent justice on the Supreme Court, and then Republican Sarah Stevens, who's actually she's the #2 Republican in the state House of Representatives right now, but she's going to try to leave the legislature and get a seat on the state Supreme Court. Okay. And Republicans right now have a big majority on the Supreme Court. It's a 5-2 lead that they have. Earls holding on would be big because, as you know, there are 3 seats that are going to be up for election in 2028. All of those seats are held by Republicans. So if Earls can hold on, that gives Democrats a really good chance of, or at least better odds, of flipping control of the court in 2028.
Wow. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of attention on our state between the U.S. Senate race, with Tom Tillis not seeking re-election, and a bunch of Republicans hoping to fill that seat. And then you have Democrat Roy Cooper, former governor, former attorney general, trying to flip it in the U.S. Senate. So you've got that race, then you've got congressional races, then you've got the state Supreme Court, which is, like you said, is a big deal. It sort of sets the table for 2028. And then you've got these legislative races. I think what I was surprised by was there was a Democrat named Brian Kahn, I believe, just north of us in the Triangle. He won a surprise race in the last election.
Yeah, he knocked off a Republican incumbent in a year that Trump won North Carolina. It was a pretty impressive outcome for him.
And this year he's decided not to run. Someone else from his local commission is going to run for Democrats. So there are so many moving parts when it comes to trying to keep a majority or break a supermajority in these chambers.
Yeah, we know that there is definitely going to be some new faces in the legislature next year. The question is just, is it a dozen new faces or is it more like 20?
Right. And then we couldn't finish this without talking about the biggest primary, at least in the state legislature, would be out in Rockingham County. That's the home of Senate Leader Phil Berger, who's been there for a long time, who we've talked about before. He hasn't had a legitimate challenge in years, but this year he faces a Republican primary opponent in Sheriff Sam Page. Now, he's been the sheriff since, if I remember correctly, the late 90s, maybe 1997.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have to know anything about North Carolina politics to know that all over the state, but especially in rural counties like that, the sheriff is often the most powerful and most popular person in the county. So
when it comes to, we've talked about primaries and the U.S. Senate race and congressional races in another video. You should like or subscribe and then go watch that video too. But that's the primary that people will be watching at the state level.
Yeah. Obviously, President Trump has weighed in recently to endorse Phil Berger, but Page is staying in the race, and he thinks he can still win it even despite Trump's endorsement.
As I mentioned, primaries March 5th, but you can request an absentee ballot and vote weeks beforehand. You can also, in North Carolina, participate in a party's primary if you're an unaffiliated voter.
That's right. If you're unaffiliated, you can pick. You can do either the Democratic Party primary, the Republican Party primary, the Libertarian primary, if there is one.
But now you can't do that if you're registered. If you're registered Republican, you can't switch to the Democrat. If you're registered Libertarian, you can't switch to either of those. If you're unaffiliated, though, hey, you can sort of pick your poison here.
Yeah, and these primaries, like you said, they're going to be fast approaching. I mean, as soon as the new year hits, we're going to see ads everywhere. This is really going to hit people fast. So, if you're interested in any of these races, start doing your homework, figure out who the candidates are.
Specifically at WRAL.com.
Thank you for that correction.
Yeah.